Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. I am so super excited. I am super excited for this. This is probably the best book haul for me, in my opinion, that I've ever shared, because it's all vintage books and books that are just great. They are just so good. And I'm so excited to share those with you. Okay, so these have actually come into my hands over the past couple of weeks. That's what makes it so exciting, because I find vintage books all the time. You know, when I go to thrift stores, estate sales, yard sales, I'll find a book here and there, and then I will just collect them in a little basket, and then, you know, over time I'll share them with you. Well, these have come to me quick, really quick. Now, I will say some of these I ordered, so that's why. But then the others, I was just out and about and they were just calling to me. I just am so excited. Okay, this first stack I ordered on eBay because Elizabeth over at Lizzie Faye Loves Books, she called me one day and she said, have you read, who is it? Gladys Tabor. Have you read any of her books? And I was like, no, I wasn't familiar. She was like, well, if you haven't, you have got to read her, because she writes about this place, Steel Meadow, I think is what it's called. And it's like Onward and Upward in the Garden, that kind of book where it's gardening and things like that. And it's like a memoir or whatever. But she also writes some fiction. And she said they're hard to come by. She had happened to find them somewhere, but she looked online and she saw that you couldn't hardly find them. And so I started searching and I found where they had a book. It was a fiction, so I ordered it. And then they had like this little bundle, and so I ordered those. And I didn't know where to start or what, but I am so excited about it because she shared she took pictures of some of the pages and shared some of it with me. And it is, I really feel like she's going to be one of my favorite authors by what she shared with me. So anyway, they came in, and then some of these others came in. So I did order these on eBay, and these were not as cheap. I did spend a little bit more on these, but it was because Elizabeth convinced me that I would love it. And she also said that Sonia had mentioned this over, I think they were doing a reading sprint one night. I'll leave a link to Sonia's channel below too, because if you have not, she's a newer booktuber, and if you have not subscribed, you need to go over, because she does some great videos. So I'll leave a link to Sonia below, as well as Elizabeth, but I talk about Elizabeth all the time. But Sonia is a new booktuber, and she's just sweetest thing. She's the sweetest girl. But anyway, those two, I think that Elizabeth learned about Gladys Tabor from Sonia. I hope I'm making sense with all that. When I get on here, I look at the lens of this camera, and I'm like, I don't even know the English language anymore. It's just, anyway. So Sonia was reading one of the books, and I think she told Elizabeth about it. Elizabeth actually had one or something, and it came to pass that we're all going to read some Gladys Tabor. So I didn't want to be left out, so I found this bundle of books on eBay. So I did pay a little bit more because, you know, with shipping and handling and stuff. But anyway, it was a bundle. The first one, though, was just a little fiction, and it was a romance. And I was in the middle of retro romance at the time when I ordered it. So, of course, I had to have it. It's called The Heart Has April Too. And look at that cute little book. It's one of those, looks like one of those pocketbook kind of books. But I thought it was the cutest little book, and so I got that one because, like I say, they're hard to come by. And then I have this, it's like a bundle of books, Steel Meadow Sampler, and this one I think is where I'm going to start, just because it's called a sampler, and it might be a sample of her writing. But I noticed that it has spring, summer, fall, and winter. There's some little illustrations in it too. Cool. And so let me show you one of the illustrations. Isn't that pretty? Am I showing it? I don't know if I'm showing it or not. I can't see when I do that. So this one is, I think this might have been the one that Sonia was reading. And then this one's called Especially Father. And by the way, if you know anything about this Gladys Tabor, here she is on the back of this one. Let me know. But the way that, when I read what Elizabeth shared when she took a little picture, it sounds a lot like some of those books I've been reading lately, those memoir kind of books. The Still Meadow Road, and then Country Chronicle. And so I am very excited to have this stack. And yes, I went overboard, but why not? Okay, and so then I did order these two books. Again, it was Retro Romance that did it. So I'm blaming Storm over at Storm Reads and Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, because they had hosted this Retro Romance and they made me want some vintage books. And so that's why I went online and picked up this one, this cute little vintage. But also, as I don't know why, but when they mentioned Retro Romance, I thought back to the first little romance I ever read that I can remember. And that was 15 by Beverly Cleary. And I loved that book so much. I can tell you right where it was in the little library at my middle school. And I checked that book out so many times. I wish I had that book so that I could see the card, because Mitzi would have been, my little name and my signature would have been on that so many times. So I would love to have that card to see how many times I actually checked this out from the library, because I read it several times. I was at that school for 3 years, and I read it several times during that time. But anyway, they had the library on eBay. They had the cover of the library edition. Now they had the paperback, I think, in my library too, because they had some paperbacks. But they had the library binding one online, and so I had to have it. So this is 15, and this was the first romance I ever read, and I read this in middle school. And it is the sweetest little story. I just love it. It's a young adult, a more middle grade. It's a sweet little story. And just look at her on that phone. Is that not the sweetest thing? And then another one that I read, not as many times as this, but I did read. And because this came, I was looking for this one came up. The Luckiest Girl. And I thought that this was in such great shape. And I really didn't pay much for this one. So I just thought that one was pretty too. And I just remember these from my childhood. And I call myself a Beverly Cleary girl because she started me on reading. She, she was one of those that if it said Beverly Cleary on the spine, I was picking that book up. So I was a big Beverly Cleary fan. I say Beverly Cleary and Judy Blume fan because those were the two authors that most girls my age loved at the time. So this was just a treasure, y'all. This is just a treasure. But I did hunt this down on eBay. The rest of these books were just found out and about. So that makes it even more exciting when you just go in a store and there's the book. So let me get these books and I'll share them with you. All right, so this is the first stack of books, and I can't remember where I found all of these. I'll try to remember as I go because some of these have stories behind them. But we were out and about. A lot of times my husband will take me to lunch, and on the way we'll go like to an antique store or a little thrift store in the area or something like that. And it can be a Salvation Army, and I'm happy as a lark doing that. I don't know why, but I don't like department stores, big high-end stores. I guess I'm cheap. And so I like to go to thrift stores. For one thing, I feel like I'm recycling and not wasting, because I don't know about you, but a lot of these high-end department stores, I feel like it's throwaway stuff. It's not, everything looks the same. The clothes are throwaway. They're not good quality. But if you go to some of these Goodwills and thrift stores and antique stores, you find well-made furniture, these old books that you can't find anywhere else. Even the knickknacks are different and interesting. And so I just enjoy that type of shopping. I do not like to go to Walmart. I just don't like that. I mean, I understand Walmart serves its purpose, but even a higher end department store, I just don't enjoy that. I go when I have to. I guess that's what I mean. So anyway, we were at one of the thrift stores, a secondhand book. It was not a bookstore, it was a thrift store, but they have secondhand books in the thrift store, and I found these. And I got this because I love Victober, which is a celebration in October of Victorian literature. So I thought I would read this during that time. This is called Victoria and Albert by Evelyn Anthony. And I don't know when this was published, but it looks like an old book. I loved the cover of this one. And so I plan on reading this at some point during Victober, and to celebrate, Victober, because I love it so much. And then I found this book. I don't know anything about it, but it looked like the book 15 by Beverly Cleary. It's called I, Judy by Eve Bennett. And to me, it looks like a more of a young adult book. It might not be, but that's what it looks like to me. And so I wanted to try that one. And then my husband found this one. It's Kiss Me Again Stranger by Daphne du Maurier, and I didn't have this one, and it's got the jacket still on it, the dust jacket on it, and it was also in this plastic. Of course, it's got Daphne du Maurier on the back. I always love that. But this one has Kiss Me Again Stranger, which is a short novel, and then it also has some short stories in it. I know The Birds is in this collection. I've already read that one. This was an ex-library book. And it had some really cool illustrations in it too. Let's see if I can find one like that. Isn't that cool? I loved that. So it has some illustrations, and normally in these Daphne du Maurier books they don't. I think, yes, a Doubleday, because I collect the Doubleday publications of Daphne du Maurier. So I was excited because I didn't have that one, and I want to read everything by Daphne du Maurier, so that was a great one to add to my collection. Super cheap too. That makes it even better. Oh, and then I found this. Now, I already have this book right here. I already have Beanie Malone in this paperback. It was someone, they did a reprint not that long ago, probably the 80s or something, 1980s or something. They did a reprint of this, and so I have a lot of them in this series, but I found an original one. Look at that. And I just couldn't resist. I love it. It's a hardback, and that one looks fantastic. So I do have a lot of them in these paperbacks, but I didn't have any of the hardcovers. Loved that. Again, a thrift store. Okay, and so then we were actually in, this is another time, we were going to lunch again, probably the following week after that, and we were looking for a hutch. I wanted a hutch. We've been doing some remodeling here, and my husband has put down new flooring. I mean, the poor guy has been working his tail off at my house, but he's super talented, and he's a super hard worker, and I love him for it. But he was redoing the room. He redid this room to make the library. And so where I did have bookshelves, it's just a little closed-in porch. It was a porch to begin with, a screening porch, and he closed it in to make me an office once Elijah was born, so I'd have extra space. So that's where I had my library, but it was a small room. Well, once we cleared everything out, I'm going to make it a morning room because it has a lot of natural light that flows in, and I thought this would be a great morning room. Well, one of the walls where I had all those bookshelves, I thought a hutch would look nice there, and I could store some of my dishes, because if you want to see something, you need to see my dishes. Because not only do I collect books, I also collect dishes too. So anyway, I thought it'd be a great way to display my dishes, because I buy a lot. I don't buy new dishes. I buy them all like at Goodwill and stuff. And they're pretty dishes. So since they're so cheap, even though they're pretty, if they break, who cares? I didn't spend 50 cents on half of them. So I have collected so many that I want to display them because they are pretty, even though we use them every day, but I want to display them in there. So anyway, I say all that to say we were looking for a hutch, and I wanted, again, a cheap hutch. I wasn't going to pay full price. And we walk in the store, and there's the hutch. I mean, the first thing we see, and not only that, it was 50% off, and it was already marked down. So it was a steal. Of course, it needed some things done to it, so my husband's got it in the garage right now working on it because I wanted to paint it. But in that store, I told him, I said, okay, we'll get this hutch, you can handle that, and I'm going to do a little walkthrough because we had not been in this particular store. Well, they had a whole collection of some middle grade mysteries. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I've been reading the Nancy Drews with a group, and we read 1 through 10. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute too, because there was something serendipitous about that as well. But in this particular store, in one of the booths, they had the Cherry Ames. Well, I've never read those, but when I introduced that I was going to go through reading the Nancy Drew books, several of you mentioned those books to me. Well, they had a whole stack of them. So I have Cherry Ames Staff Nurse, and then Cherry Ames Flight Nurse. I am so excited to try these, y'all. Cherry Ames Chief Nurse. I mean, they're in great shape, and they're just like the Nancy Drews, see? Cherry Ames Army Nurse, Cherry Ames Senior Nurse, and Cherry Ames Student Nurse. And I think I just did these backwards because I think this is the first one. Are they numbered? I don't think they're numbered. Yeah, they are. They're numbered. But it's a weird 9 set. Oh, no, they're numbered right here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 23. They're numbered on the side. I didn't see that. So I am so excited to try Cherry Ames. I'm so excited for this. I have never read Cherry Ames before, but several of you said that you enjoyed those when you were younger. So this was in that little antique store. And a lot of times in antique stores, they want a pretty penny for their books. But this booth did not. So I was like, yeah, I'm getting all of those. So that was a good find too. Okay, so what I was going to say about Nancy Drew. So we chat just about every day in our little Let's Read Nancy group. And Janet, one of the people in our group, Janet, she knows everything about the Nancy Drew books. And so when I find them, I'm asking her, and she kind of gives me some information about them. Well, I couldn't wait to tell her, which I wanted the whole group to know, but because Janet collects these, she could help me out with it, so that's why I wanted her to know. So we were in this antique store. I don't remember what we were doing up there, but we were just doing a quick walkthrough, and I had just finished book 10. I had just finished the last book we were going to read in our group. So I felt like I was celebrating when I found these. And there on the shelf was 1 and 10. So I never see the Nancy Drew, the original Nancy Drews. I'll find them sometimes, the blue Nancy Drew books, the old ones, but not very often. And usually they're really expensive. Well, I never see them with the cover on them. These both had the dust jacket on it. So these were the only books there, and it was The Secret of the Old Clock, the old original Secret of the Old Clock, so it's the original story, Nancy Drew, which is number 1, and The Password to Larkspur Lane, which is number 10. And so I thought this was so funny because this was the first one and the last one that we read for the read-along. So I was so excited to find these. And so after we went to this store, we stopped for lunch. I took a picture and I went on Voxer and told my group, you're not going to believe this, what I found. So as we were talking on Voxer, I went to another, after lunch, I went to another antique store, and there was another Nancy Drew with the dust jacket. I could not believe it. And this one is number, is it 20? 20, I think it's 20. And it's the Clue in the Jewel Box. And that is the cover for it. And so I have now this one with the original dust jacket. This one, I love the cover on that one. And the first, that one. So I collect the ones that have the matte cover on it, and I will still collect those. But when I see these for super cheap, y'all, I found these super cheap, I had to pick it up. I had to. And then this was what was so funny. After I got home, I sent another message and showed them this cover, the Clue in the Jewel Box. And Janet said she was reading this since we finished with 1 through 10 because this is her favorite. So not only did I find the first one and the last one that we read, but Janet's favorite too. And Janet is our informant. She's the one that educates us on Nancy Drew in our group. So that was just serendipitous to find those books right after I had just finished number 10. So of course I'm going to continue looking for more of the Nancy Drew books and read them, but we stopped at 10. We're going to continue our group. I'm not going to close the group out because we're still talking about it. So you are welcome to join us on Voxer. All you have to do is email me and let me know you want to be in the group, because we're just talking about Nancy Drew in general right now. So you haven't missed much. You can go back and read them, and you don't have to read them in order. You can join us at any time, because I'm going to keep it open, and we will get back to it eventually and read some more Nancy Drew and just talk about these books and how much they meant to us, when we were like childhood favorites. So I was excited for those. But then this past week, I got one more stack for you. This past weekend, I went to an estate sale, and I found some really good ones. Hang on, let me get them. Okay, so I have another stack that I found at an estate sale this past weekend. So I had gone to an estate sale on Friday, and my husband couldn't go with me, so I went by myself. Well, I don't do well by myself because I can't carry what I want to if I want a piece of furniture or something. So I had picked up a couple of things at the sale. There was a Nancy Drew, and it's not in the stack, I'm now remembering. There was a Nancy Drew. It was the matte cover that I liked. But I think that it was actually the old story, because when I talked to Janet, it had like 200 pages in it or something. So I think it's the original story in that one. Anyway, I'll have to show you. I'll put in a picture because it's in the other room and I don't want to have to get up and go find it. But I did find that, and so I was really excited to find it. But I didn't pick up any other books that day because I went for something else. So the next morning, I'm outside talking to my husband, drinking my coffee like at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I tell him, I hate I didn't pick up this. It was a wicker little coffee table kind of thing. And we're doing something in our backyard where I could use that. And I thought I could spray paint that thing up. But again, I was by myself and just handling things. So he said, well, we'll ride back up there and look, because it was a 2-day estate sale. Well, on the last day of the estate sales, I don't know about the ones you go to, but where I'm from, they mark everything way down because they're trying to just get rid of stuff. So we go up there and we hit the mother load, because they still had that little wicker table, and of course I got it less than half price by the time I picked it up. But everything else, they were pretty much like, okay, give me so much money for all those things. Well, the house that we went to was actually from the late 1800s, and there's 12 acres. It was gorgeous, and sadly they're going to just knock this down and it's going to be commercial property, which is really sad. But the person that owned the house, he was an antique owner. He was an antiques dealer. And so there were so many pieces of art, and that's what I went for, because I buy my art secondhand because I can't afford it from the gallery, So I had gone to look at some of the artwork he had, and just beyond, I don't know how many pieces of framed art he had. He had so many antiques in that house, but he also had books stacked up, and some of these books he had priced, I would have never been able to buy them, seriously. But I was able to get these for pretty much nothing, because by the time I picked up a couple of art pieces and that furniture, it was like, oh, just throw those in your bag. So these were pretty much free. So I found The Crows of Pearl Blossom. Now I only picked this up because it's by, how do you say his name? Aldous Huxley, that wrote Brave New World. That's the only reason I picked this up, because this is a picture book. It's a weekly reader picture book. And I just found that to be interesting by the author of A Brave New World. So that's why I picked that up. I picked this up because I do love the middle grade mysteries, the vintage ones. And this one's called The Mystery of the Pilgrim Trading Post by Anne Malloy. And that looked like my kind of book. And then I found these. This is The Croquet Player by H.G. Wells. Now, I have never heard of this H.G. Wells. Let me know if you've read this, but look at that cover. So I picked that up because I do love H.G. Wells. Now, I love H.G. Wells sci-fi. I haven't read any of the other, and I don't know, that's probably not sci-fi. But anyway, I'll give it a try. And then I found these two. This book was in a cover. He had it in a little bag, and it said $22 on the front of it. Well, of course, I didn't pay $22 for it because she said just put it in your bag. This is The Adventures of Pinocchio, and it is from 1946. And it has its original dust jacket on it. And then this one was marked $99. I kid you not. It said $99. Who would pay $99? Not me. So anyway, I got it for pretty much free. And that is Peter Pan and Wendy. Okay, it shut off because I'm talking too much. The next one I found was Peter Pan and Wendy. Look at that. And this one is from 1926. This is a 1926 edition. So I had to have it. I mean, because it was pretty much, she was like, throw that in your bag. I mean, for free, okay, yeah. So that's how you find these books. You go to estate sales. You go to thrift stores. And sometimes you can find them in some of these antique stores as well. So you just have to be looking. Have an eagle eye and be looking, and you can find these vintage books that are fantastic. They're just fantastic. So I wanted to share those with you because I was so excited for this book haul. This is the best book haul for me because I do love a great vintage book. And this has been over just the past couple of weeks. It's just like they're calling my name. Janet said that. Janet said I had the touch, that they were just calling out to me. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of these. If you found a treasure, a surprise treasure for a great deal, let me know that too. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.